Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Patrons video. Today they're making for Jan Žvak as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track or the album on the screen, Hyo Hyo Toshite from Atozome. This is a track titled Gardenia, and we're going to listen through it from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it.
二つと大きくなって通りすがりの鳥が言うには無から有は生まれないよだって重ねていくのが連れて行きたいもの全部もで数えたら増える増える増える溢れる
I mean, like, there's a wonderful amount of development there, diversity within the guitar parts. The vocals being the focal point, of course, but it was nice that the guitar rose up with it. Very tuneful. And the production is stellar. Stellar. It's good. Ah, fantastic. I enjoy it. We'll go back a little bit so we can appreciate that, but I really do enjoy when there is this build with the drums, like going double time. There's an adjustment with the way the drum flow works with the vocals, and we build into a chorus, but we're still allowing a little bit of headroom. And so then the distorted guitar comes in, and it just goes up even further, or the overdriven guitar then. It's stellar. It's really good. Yeah. And on the left side too, I think. Or on both? Key change. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt that. Ah, it's staccatos. Good. Good, good, good. Good. I want to talk real... Actually, no, that'll be in the conclusion, I suppose. I want to make it clear that, first of all, I really did appreciate the song. The reason I said good is because I was concerned that we were going to try and overshadow the lead guitar with more of the vocals. Now, great singer. Don't get me wrong. It's just that when you have an alternate lead, it can be good to allow that to breathe, especially if you've had a lot of the track being with the vocals for the focal point. It just allows the listener to understand that there's a change that's occurring. If you don't allow that transition to occur in a way that's clean, like it did happen here, but if we were to add another line near the end, it would have just seemed like we were potentially trying to add more than we might have needed to it. We need to allow space for lead sections. It's not just because it's a guitar and I like guitar. It's because you want to have one lead at a time usually, unless it's clearly a sub-lead. In that situation, we rose up, there was a crescendo with lead guitars into that last section. So I'm glad that we switched, but we'll talk about that more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Atozome, titled Gardenia. Now, what do I think this track is about? I'm not sure. I heard Sayonara, which, with my complete basic understanding of Japanese, is potentially inferring that we're saying goodbye to something. It could be a fond farewell. It could be any number of things. But what I know is that we were definitely saying goodbye. And I'm not being facetious. I mean it genuinely. I'm studying Japanese at the moment, and I'm finding it difficult. But I'm starting to hear certain words outside of sayonara that are starting to make sense. I just want to sort of say up front, if you understand Japanese, especially if you've learned it as a second language, I have a lot of respect for you, because Japanese is not a language that is easy to get the hang of. But moving on, I think that while I'm not sure about what the song was about, I nonetheless appreciated listening to the story that the vocalist was singing. They've got a great voice. They were very fragrant, and there was range and diversity in both the expression as well as the actual note choices. We had interesting sort of verse and chorus ideas. We had a chord key change in the middle where we sort of smashed that as well. We also raised ourselves up to the guitar parts at some point. We had a great sort of sense of variation with the dynamic range. We did very well. It was very good. It was a very, very solid first impression. The track itself at 4:03 was, it's just outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, but I think it was incredibly well layered. There were no bits of filler. There were no points where I was like, why are we continuing with this? We even allowed for a bit of extra time with that outro part where things sort of rang out as well. So I'd argue it's within the 4 minute mark. But either way, I think that the verse chorus transitions outside the instrumental intro, outside of the lead sections, outside of the key change and the variations there, which could have potentially been an additional sort of alternate chorus or like an interlude or something like that, I'm not sure. Either way, tremendous. And I think that the structure of it was tight, but it's also the instrumental performances which made it kind of elevated it, if you know what I mean. So like, if I talk about a few of my favorite instrumental parts, I think the guitars were quite good. I liked the guitar parts a lot there. I think the jingly jangliness of the note choices, the melodies in the earlier section, how we started off kind of nice and sort of more simple, but we kind of elevated and got a bit more sort of like intense as the vocals came in. So us go towards sort of like some jangly arpeggios, then moving into a bit of distortion on either side of the mid-range, then coping with that key change, providing harmonic sort of backing there, to then eventually move into those lead sections up in the higher register and there really kind of belt stuff out, which is wonderful. The guitarists did a tremendous job. And I think that they harmonized really neatly with the vocals as well, so they were definitely in check. The bass guitarist could play, man. They were not just playing the root notes of the chords, they were also exploring both the scales and relevant modes. I gotta show some love for that. That is not an easy thing to do, but they did so. They nailed it, so well done to them for handling that, They went outside of the box a little bit and it paid off. And it was also just a really great bass tone there that sat really neatly within the mix as well as in the arrangement. The drum parts were fantastic as well. There's a phenomenal amount of dynamic range to the recording as well as the actual playing itself. Like some of those snare rolls at the start were very, very, very timid, but we smashed it. We were in time, we were tight, we pocketed when need be, we built ourselves up and had a bit of sass and pizzazz in other situations, and ultimately it was just really well balanced. They had a great sort of control of the sticks there. I've got no complaints about how they handled things. Ultimately, we have a band here where the different members can play their instruments and sing very well, and so it makes sense that the music that they write, providing they have the creativity and talent and I suppose inspiration to do so, should be stellar. And I think that if this is any indication of the rest of the album, that's going to be a pretty dope album. And I think that the theme overall is tight. No, the performance was tight. The theme overall sounded kind of gentle because of some of the major and sus harmonies that we had, suspended harmonies in there. There were no really kind of awkward, kind of tense moments there. I think that the major shift, that key change there, made it a bit more sort of like warm and wholesome sounding, which I kind of enjoy. And I think that the combination of that with the approach of the vocals as well as the tone of the other instruments there, with a sort of a central glow to it all, infers to me that this was trying to be sort of a more sort of uplifting, wholesome kind of sounding piece of music, and in that regard I think they succeeded. Again, I'm not totally sure about what the track is about, but I imagine if it's anywhere near that, then again, as I said before, they've accomplished the mission they set out to do. So I think that with that in mind, the studio recording, mixing and mastering is tight. Everything's tight. It's just well handled. It sounds like a professional, great track. They're a solid band. I think that aside from there's no issues with the mixing. I think that it was wonderfully recorded. I think that the vocals, guitar, bass, and drums were nice and tight. I've said nice, but were well leveled in the mix. There was dynamic range. Things were nice and wide in the stereo field there. Things weren't always even in the sense they weren't trying to be. Kind of like you explored things in the headphones as much as you explored things through the track. There were no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum there. At the beginning, before we build ourselves up to the mid to high ranges, it almost seemed like we were in a down point. So it seemed like there was a bit of a low resonance, but once the lead guitars and the upper register came in, it balanced out really nicely. It's nice to loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting were handled, and effectively this is just a really positive review of this track from an act named Atozome, titled Gardenia, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via the various social medias and the Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SC Patrons video. Spiderhands out.